All right, so last time we were just ending about me really just going on about what to expect on what this chapter is talking about. So let's get into some of the information. And so here we're going to be talking about what makes civilization possible: the food-producing revolution, Paleolithic age, 200,000 to 100,000 years ago. It's quite a long time, yes. Homo sapiens, cave art, hunter-gatherers, domestication. I'm going to just cover these really briefly, all right? Because this information is helpful to conceptualize. Again, where do we come from, the origins of things, but we don't have a lot of information, and archaeologists and physical anthropologists can work with the materials they have and help give us an idea of some things, but we don't have a lot of information. What I want to mention is this is also going to be talking just a little bit on evolution. I know that many of my students don't believe in evolution, and so you don't have to believe in evolution. I'm merely giving you an interpretation of history through the secular world, in which everybody's trying to think about how we got here, where we started with. So the concept of Adam and Eve, or a first couple, or an origins. What's the book of Genesis called? And I mean, the first book of the Bible, Genesis, means like to generate in the beginning. In Hebrew, it's Bereshit, in the beginning. So people want to know, well, when's the beginning? And there's different ways we can approach that. This is the way that historians approach this. Through this method, we don't find Adam and Eve, quote unquote, but another method of trying to get to the origins of humanity. And so I just want you to think about it that way. And again, you don't have to agree. I want you to just kind of understand how historians and the science world kind of looks at the origins of humanity. But again, when you're doing my assignments, I always say this to my students: you never have to believe anything that I say or teach. You have to listen to what I'm teaching and follow my instructions. And I do my best to give you what I think is factual information, but people do disagree on some of these things sometimes, right? Okay, so moving on. There's a nice little picture. Okay, so let's take a look at this map right here. And just, if you look at these little colors, it talks about Indus, Ganges, river valleys, the Wangho River Valley, Tigris, Euphrates River Valleys, Nile River Valley, Central Asia. You notice that the word river valley pops up a lot. That's what I want you to just kind of take with this. Just like in business, what's important? Location, location, location. What do humans need to survive if you're going to settle down? You need water. And you need, land that can grow food, right? That's important. So it's no coincidence that we see what we term civilization, talking about, all the characteristics that we were talking about earlier, really, emerge out of areas that have river valleys, okay? And we're not going to talk about all these. This is not a world history class, but just notice this, and you'll see that civilizations would emerge often out of these river valleys, okay? So that's one thing. And we're talking about food producing communities. Now, this might bore some of you, to be frankly. I mean, you think, oh gosh, okay, great, so they produced food. Well, I mean, I just want to just point this out. We live in a time, especially in America, where even when you're poor, you can come up with 99 cents and get like a burger, right, at a fast food restaurant. And many people who are even really conservative, who don't want people to be on welfare or don't want to give out their money, will give food to somebody. So you can be someone on the street and they say, can I have some change? And often you have someone say, well, I'll buy you some food, or I'll give you some of my groceries, but not money. I mean, we see it as important to give food, and we have a lot available relatively here in the United States compared to other places and times. It's not always been the case, and not in every country is it the case now. And frankly, I think that if we were reduced, those of us who live in this part of the world, to where we could only come up with 2 meals a day, and you knew that there was another country or state where you could get back to the 3-meal diet and snacking, we'd probably leave and we would go there, right? I mean, can we even skip 1 meal a day and not be agitated? Okay, but it's never been a given to get 3 meals a day. And so food is important, and where people can live and produce food, that's where people want to live. Okay, so that's really what I want to talk about that. And we see what's called the Fertile Crescent. You'll hear that more than Levantine corridor. Even now, when you talk about like Iraq and so forth, and you'll talk about, here's a picture of it. So that extends to this is, if you know this, a location: Jordan, Palestine, Israel, Syria, and right over here you can see this right here is the beginnings of food production. And so I'm going to keep reminding you, the Middle East is the place that many people in America look down on as like some sort of backward place. I'm not saying that that's what I think or all Americans think, but I think that the Middle East is certainly this obscure, mystical, like we don't understand why they're fighting over there all the time, blah, blah, blah. Just keep in mind, civilization, as we know it, we credit with coming from this part of the world. So whether from food production and even governance, which we're going to talk about more. So I'm just going to move on from that right now. Okay, so then I want to talk about Europe again. We're talking about Western civilization, but this is not a history of Europe, because as I was mentioning, civilization comes from places outside of Europe. But what this book does, which I liked, is if you look on page 15, it talks about transformations in Europe. And so it mentions that a lot of the developments that you would see that would go into creating civilization would take about 1,000 years for Europe to catch up to. And a lot of it had to do with climate, just colder and wetter and harder to cultivate food. And so again, there's the importance of the food issue, right? So sometimes we have to remember this as well. Societies, the fact that they thrive one over the other, why do some societies do so much better than other societies? Often people say, oh, because that race is better, or what they know, or their religion. Well, sometimes it's about, again, the location. If you move to an area and you can barely eat and survive there, you don't, what are you going to be able to do? Now, if you have a group of people that find a nice spot where you can eat and drink, and the weather can be decent, and you can, have get-togethers, you're going to do better, right? So it might just be literally the place that you live, as opposed to just what's inherently a part of your DNA or within your cultural teachings, okay? And so then, actually I want to stop right there and we'll just come back and talk about this. Okay.